Move on to session 6. Our first session today explores the transformative power of open justice systems. We'll discuss initiatives designed to enhance transparency, accountability, and civic participation within justice systems, leaving no one behind. To help us explore the future of open justice, I invite our moderator, Ms. Supharat Sawetaman, Thailand Institute of Justice. Ms. Supharat, please, you have the floor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fern Sawetaman, and I am a Global Engagement Lead from TIJ Office of Justice Innovation. It is my great honor to be here with you all this morning to organize this session on open justice system to leave no one behind. First of all, I'm not here alone this morning, so I would like to introduce two of my colleagues who will be helping me run this session, Thanyapon Kunathampong and Nathanan Somchoo. The fact that I've brought a team with me here today is because this session will not be your typical panel discussion to only just share knowledge and best practices. Since we are from the Office of Justice Innovation, we shall take an unconventional route to start your day off on an interactive note. But before we dive deeper, let me tell you a little bit about Thailand Institute of Justice and what we do. So if you don't mind, may I have the slides on the screen, please? So many of you might not be familiar with us, but we are Thailand Institute of Justice, or TIJ, we are a public organization affiliated with UNODC. We are one of the 18 members of the United Nations Program Network Institute, and the only one in the ASEAN region as of now. Our mission is to promote the implementation of UN standards and norms on crime prevention and criminal justice, the rule of law, and sustainable development. For the past 12 years, we've been working to stand with and for the vulnerable members of society. Our work began with the female prisoners through implementing the Bangkok rules. However, from understanding and tackling the female prisoners' pathways, we realized that for female offenders to successfully reintegrate back into society and be immune to reoffending, we must examine the root causes of their problems before imprisonment. It is our lesson learned that to truly and effectively improve access to justice, we must look beyond the justice system and redesign the legal, social, and healthcare system for the vulnerable people in a holistic manner. So, starting with empathy reaffirms TIJ's working principle of people-centered justice. There has been a recognizable trend towards enhancing people-centered justice in both regional and level within the ASEAN region and also the global community. By shifting the focus from the justice system and institutions to the justice users, we believe that people-centered justice can break us out of the global rule of law recession that we have been facing for 5 consecutive years, and the chronic justice issues that traditional institutional focused system is unable to address. What do people need? What do people want when they seek justice? And when do they want it? These 3 questions are the key to the people-centered justice approach. Once the answer to these questions are comprehended and integrated into the justice system, only then the justice system deliver the service that timely, just, and truly responding to the people. So to understand people's needs, TIJ collaborated with the behavioral economists at Chulalongkorn University to conduct the first justice needs survey in Thailand. It was the first countrywide survey that aimed to capture the justice needs of the general population. The survey covered more than 2,000 adults between 18 and 60-year-olds living in 7 urban areas across the countries in its first phase. And there are 2 lessons learned that we can be drawn from the survey. From studying their justice journeys, we found that justice needs vary by gender, age, and area. The survey shows specific gender patterns of justice problems that connect with the natures of different genders. Men encounter crime and violence significantly more than women, while women are more likely to face sexual harassment and divorce. It is also quite interesting to point out that women are more likely to encounter disputes over land and inheritance, which is unique to the Thai culture. Justice needs also vary by age. Divorce is concentrated in the people over the age of 40, similar to land disputes and bequest, because they must first be able to develop relationships and collect wealth in order to face these justice issues. On the other hand, violence is more common in younger people, as they are more likely to be engaged in risky and reckless behaviors. However, crimes and frauds are uniformly distributed across all age groups. The survey also shows significant differences in justice needs in different areas. In the northern region, frauds and money-related problems are very prevalent, while drug abuse is more common in the south, where kathom, or the native plants with psychedelic effects, is commonly grown. This suggests that people with different cultures living in different areas have different justice needs. So that constitutes the first lesson learned from our survey, which is justice needs are fragmented. In Thailand, they vary by gender, age, and area. So therefore, generalized or one-size-fits-all justice services, which usually are what are available out there, will not be able to meet their justice needs. When their justice needs of the people aren't met, they can become vulnerable even if they have access to the justice system. For the lesson learned number 2, we gathered from the answers to the question, what are the barriers to receiving legal services? Their top 3 major concerns were complication, confusion, and high cost, which includes monetary cost, psychological cost, and also time. To elaborate further, people think that they will survive through the current justice system only if they have the capability to make sense of its complicatedness, have a lot of connections to help provide them with information and guidance through the confusion, and have money to pay for its costs. In a justice system like this, anyone can be vulnerable and left behind by the system that is too difficult for them to navigate. That constitutes our lesson learned number 2. The justice system that truly answers to the justice needs of the people shouldn't be complicated, confusing, and costly. Understanding the justice needs will help us identify who are the people who find the justice complicated, confusing, and costly, and how we can make it more straightforward, simple, and affordable for them. The survey results suggest that anyone can be vulnerable and left behind in a justice system that doesn't understand their needs and is unable to respond to them. Although the survey only covers data from Thailand, justice gap, where people are unable to resolve their justice problems, is a global phenomena that is observed in many countries and has persisted for a very long time. The persistent patterns of justice issues and unresolved needs suggest that institution-focused justice system is no longer working. The focus must be shifted to the people and their needs, and that can be done through an open justice system. Since open justice system is fairly a new concept, we might not have a clear definition of what it means just yet. But throughout this session, I hope we can figure it out a little bit more today by thinking about how open justice system may affect people's lives and learning the existing approaches to build the open justice systems all around the world. However, in order to design an open justice system that can truly respond to people's needs and leave no one behind, we must first be able to speculate the trends that the world is heading into and the people who will potentially be at risk of being left behind if those trends continue. So without further ado, let's dive into the future with our next activity. This activity is called Future Trends. So what are future trends? They are educated speculation of what the future world will look like, taking into account situations that have already happened in the present world. The reason we're talking about the future trend is because being aware of what kind the future world is heading towards can prompt us to reevaluate our actions today, whether they're leading us into the right direction that we want to go to. Moreover, centralizing the discussion in the context of the future can be helpful in discussing sensitive topics like justice and unleash our potential by not being limited to the restrictions we may be facing in the present. The purpose of this activity is for us to have the conversation and begin to design an open justice system that truly leaves no one behind and also future-proof. The conversation over trends to help us plan the future is inspired by what you may heard of as futures thinking or strategic foresight. However, we're not doing any of that today, but if anyone is interested, you can scan the QR code to read the handbook that our team at TIJ has written on futures thinking and its application on justice. Okay. So you probably seen these cards of the future trends stuck on the flip charts on the left side of the room. I hope most of you have at least browsed through them. If not, I'd like to invite you to check them out after our session and put up at least one post-it on who do you think will be vulnerable and is at risk of being left behind in the future when these trends continue. So we picked out 7 trends from the future that we think are very interesting and relevant to our discussion today. These trends are the product of our ongoing research with the School of Public Policy of Chiang Mai University. They are derived from the current situations that have already happened to give us a heads up of how the futures could look like. However, these trends may or may not happen, and they may have various possibilities, but being aware of them is important as they remind us of how our actions today may affect our future. And if we don't like these futures predicament that we see today, they will urge us to think about how we can act differently today to change the futures towards things that we want to see. So these 7 trends are the identity and family I can choose, born rich or die trying, citizens jury judging the judges, when we are all refugees, where is a safe place to live, the green transition, AI evolving beyond human judgment, and embracing open government in digital age. So for the benefit of the time and deep discussion, we want to focus on 2 trends that we think are most relevant to open justice system, which are citizen jury and open government. We think that these 2 trends are closely related to open justice system because they have similar variables, for example, transparency, civic participation, and public accountability, just to name a few. So it will be a great starting point to look at these 2 trends to discuss the possible futures of how an open justice system could look like. So before we talk more about these 2 trends, for this activity, you will have to move around and rearrange yourself a little bit. So may I ask you to get up from your seats just to get ready and stretch out? Yeah, no, please, thank you. You can get up and stay where you are at the moment. So wow, thank you very much. So this is like a morning exercise for all of you. Right. Can I have my slides back on? Awesome. So just a warm-up question. What are some keywords that come into your mind when you think about citizen jury and open government? You can shout it out like popcorn style, if you may. Transparency, equality, public participation, accountability, digital transitions. Any more answers? Imparity. Awesome. Public trust? Propriety? Integrity. Awesome. I think we've begin to see quite a few themes of that these two concepts revolve around, right? So if you may, don't mind, I will invite my colleague Natanan to tell us a little about citizen jury and what we're talking about today.
Good morning, and let's dive into our first trend. The first one is citizen jury, and at its heart, the citizen jury is about making justice system more inclusive. It gives everyday people like you and me the power to contribute to the judicial decisions, and you don't need a law degree to be a part of it, and that's the beauty of it. And it's also a move toward a more participative form of justice. But also here's a thought. How qualified are these citizens? And how can we ensure quality when everyone has a say? And now, here's a quick question for everyone to think about it. Will the citizen jury make out this justice system more trustworthy? And I will invite all of you to position yourself along this spectrum based on your opinion. So if you say that yes, the citizen jury would make our justice system more trustworthy, you can walk there on the right side of the room. And if you say no, you can also be on the left side of the room. But if you are left side of the room, oh yeah, so yes is there and no is over there, sorry. But if you cannot decide like entirely yes or no, you can stand along the spectrum too, or you can stand right in the middle if you are not either sure or not sure. So please position yourself along the room.
If you think no, you can come here.
No is that side. No is on that side, and yes is on this side.
It's a spectrum, right? So there's not completely yes or no answer. There are gray area in the middle. Is that what you want? But let's try to make a line to
In the middle.
illustrate
Yeah.
our spectrum here. I'll give you a few minutes to rearrange yourself. No is here.
No is with Fern, and yes is with my colleague Tanya Pon.
It works in some countries, not look, if I can buy a vote here in Thailand for 500 baht, you think for a case of 500 million I can't buy for, that's,
So
that's the
maybe,
logic.
yeah. So
So I can't say no for every country.
right, but you're
you can do it in Singapore, but not in Thailand.
okay. So are you kind of leaning towards no or yes or
I'm
unsure?
inclined towards no.
All
I can't
right.
speak for my country, okay?
Okay.
I can't speak for Malaysia or
Right. So I hope we'll hear from them today, right? All right. Okay. I think everyone's stationary. I'll ask some of you why do you stand where you're standing right now? I think
I said that already.
this participant here, Mr. Tavira.
I'm from International Trade Court. You see in the movie, you see in the States, everybody's got the
He's loyal.
people's jury citizens. It works. But if, in some certain country, for example, okay, in my country, if you can buy a vote, if you're a politician, I give you 500 baht, or, if you vote for me. Can you imagine if that's a case where it's 500 million? If I want to buy the whole, citizen jury of 10, 20 of them? For a mere, pittance. So that's the argument from my side. But it doesn't mean, that it's not good. You want the people to participate. If the people are well educated, it's got honesty, integrity, you try to do that in Singapore, you buy a jury. They'll hang you the next morning and send you the ashes, right? He can't do that here. See, that's why I asked our Supreme Court friends from Malaysia, what are you going to do in, Paragon for that case? Okay, so it's same, like this here. So that's the argument from the no side. So please, no side.
We have here an yes side. Do you want to hear out? Representative from
sorry.
yes side. Yes.
I've been nominated against my will. Well, I just reading the question very carefully. It doesn't necessarily say make the system more effective or more accurate, but more trustworthy. I would say the more citizens participate in cases, the more they can see how the judiciary works. I believe trust would go up, as long as the judiciary was responsive to people's feedback and people's participation. I think over time, trust would go up. But to the point that was just mentioned, would it make it any more efficient or effective or more accurate? That depends. That depends on the responsiveness of the judiciary. So,
Thank you. And would anyone want to share? Okay.
I stay in the middle, but the percentage of yes is more than say no. In my countries, in the first instance, normally the trial board, there are one judge and two citizen juries. In the case citizen juries, they have a legal knowledge. It's possible trustworthy. On the other hand, in the case they don't have legal knowledge, the judge will on the decision based on the judge, only the judge. And I think the trustworthy is not in this case. Yes, this is my say. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
May I ask a question? So, in a world where, let's imagine, right? Let's say citizen jury is available in every country in the world. In a world like that, who will be vulnerable or be at risk of being left behind? Does anyone have an idea?
Do you want to share?
Okay, I have so in my country, we only implemented citizen judges this year, and we observed that for people who are poor and who doesn't have enough resources to have a very capable representative, legal representative, they tend to refuse being tried by citizen judges because it would require very strong legal representative to fight against the government. So this is what's happening in my country. So I think maybe rich and poor division will be making some people in the vulnerable side.
Thank you for your insight.
Okay, thank you very much. So we begin to think about the people who might be left behind if citizen jury is an ongoing trend. And we also hear about the quality and the quantity versus quantity of participation, right? Actually, don't sit down just yet. We have one more question. Sorry. I promise, this is your exercise for the day. After this, can feast and have fun and relaxed. So may I ask my other colleague to introduce you the other trend that we're talking about?
I think another trend is very familiar with you guys. It's open government. You know all about it. Accessible, collaboration, everything is trustworthy. It's great the more transparency, citizen can access to any information government is doing. Yes, you're familiar with it. But in an open government, of course, they need digital, they need technology, they need internet, they need devices. If you think of someone that doesn't have any access to internet or device, what would happen? Would that create a more gap and then left someone behind at the end? So the question asked here, in the world where open government is at its full potential with digital technology helps automate the system, will justice be truly accessible? As always, we create a spectrum here. If yes, we'll definitely go to the right-hand
Here.
side. Yeah.
If you think yes, the world where open government is widespread, you think the justice will be accessible through digital technology, come here.
Yeah,
If
but
you
if it's no, then come to the other side of the room.
This side is no.
No?
And you can also be in the middle or along the spectrum too.
Okay, that's good, yes.
I'll give about 60 seconds for some movements.
Okay, maybe I'll ask you to share a little bit of what you think when you open it.
All right, I see people try to move sides. So
when we speak of open government, it's not just about digital technology or technology. And one, we are talking about transparency, and transparency is not all about technology. We're also talking about accountability and public participation. So all these things are not reliant on digital technology. Plus, when we speak of technology, it's really who controls the technology, who dictates what the technology can do for the system. So it's really individual-based also, or leader-based. So I do not think that those are the only things you need to make to make justice truly accessible.
Thank you.
And I see that you are the one who stand closest to the no. Can you share some of your ideas?
Of course. I think the most important question is not about what, but actually how. So digital technology is only a tool or a format, but it's more important in how you handle it. Its potential can be both ways, extremely negative or extremely positive. So I completely agree with the representative over there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I see the hand from there.
One hand from the yes side.
For the group, okay? This is from the Thai point of view. Everybody in my group, all judges agree it's open, it's transparent if you automate it. But me personally, it's good, if you have a truly open government. So you have to ask yourself this question: is your government truly open? Are your judges, fully, 100%, as per your perfect, as per the Bangalore principle, the highest score? Justice will be truly accessible if the technology is fully open, okay? There's no hidden, so we judges agree on that. So that's from the Thai side.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this group thinks that justice will be truly opened when technology helps the government to be truly open. So let's say if technology is used as a tool, right, to create open justice government, who will be the people who are at risk of being left behind when technology is used as a tool?
Yes. I heard from her too. Yeah, that's the same idea with the poor people. They have no budget to buy some technology, equipment, internet. Maybe they live behind this digital technology, I think. Maybe he'll try something like that.
He'll try poor people, people who live in a remote area.
I am staying in the middle because I think that there is no and yes. In the case of no, so if digital technology automate the system, there's some people, some group of people, like people with disability, poor people, people in the rural area who's not access to the internet or something, cannot access to justice as well. And yes side is that in Vietnam we apply the online court trial, and it's a great opportunity to the people to access to justice more. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel. You want to go?
Yes. Okay. Good morning. My name is Nipon. Come from the intellectual property.
Good morning.
So this session will make me wake up. Okay. So that's good for all.
That's the purpose. That's the purpose.
So we stay in the middle because my opinion is for safe for me, for safe for all, because we have some condition to argue or to make a listen. So the one thing that is my profession is about computer engineering. So technology have two sides of coin. Depends how to use, how to implement or applicable for that. So be careful. The one thing that is Thailand not coming is going to our country, even in the ASEAN country, about the cyber security. How do you prove it to be true or not? That is my thought about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. one more.
Okay, I am Camila from Indonesia. Maybe for answering this question, I would like to share a story about Indonesia. In opening our justice, we have a directory verdict directory, so everyone can access the verdict. Almost every verdict is accessible, but the verdict is not actually can be understood by everyone. So the openness of the data does not automatically means that your country is already open. Because when you provide the people data, not everyone can understand that. So, but the good news is when you already open, it has become great steps to the next transparency. And in Indonesia, we already opened the verdict, and it is the pairs and the academic sector to make the people understand about that. So when the question is about does the open government help to promote open justice, I guess yes, but not with many action to support that openness, so people can understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all your answers. I won't make you stand for too long. The morning exercise is over. You can take a seat. Thank you. Thank you so much. So that's wonderful. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the little morning exercise and start your morning off on like an interactive note that will continue throughout the day, hopefully. But back to our topic of building open justice system. So I think building open justice system to leave no one behind begins with trying to answer questions like these and think about these variables, whether they are quantity versus quality, digitalization versus humanization, whether digital technology opens the data, but do people actually understand it, or digital divide. These questions and variables prompt us to think ahead about the possible futures and who will be vulnerable and might be at risk of being left behind in those futures, which may or may not be the same vulnerable group that are available now, that are vulnerable now. So answering these questions remind us as we try to build an open justice system with digital technology and innovation, how trust, humanness, and inequality will actually be affected, and whether the open justice system will lead us towards the future that we desire. They may urge us to reassess and redesign our approach more holistically, as the focus will be shifted away from how the justice system should look like and centralized on the people who will be affected to make sure that they will not be left behind. Now, let's hear from our panelists how they are addressing these issues in their approach in building open justice system to leave no one behind. May I invite our honorable panelists up on the stage? In this panel, we have the opportunity to welcome 4 distinguished panelists, 2 of whom will be joining us online. So please join me in welcoming Judge Kamonchanok Katina Samit from Office of the President of the Supreme Court. Mr. Piset Wirankabut, Head Design Instigator from Creature Design Studios. And joining us online, we have Ms. Adna Karamik Oates, Acting Lead on Thematic Priorities from Open Government Partnerships, and Mr. Alvaro Herrero from REGA, joining us online. So thank you very much for being here with us today. In this session, we would love to hear from our distinguished panelists who have been involved in efforts to build an open justice system through various aspects around the world, whether it be within the judiciary, prosecutor's office, or other parts of the system. So while learning about the existing approaches, I would like to encourage you all to also keep in mind the themes of quantity versus quality, digitization versus humanization, and digital divide that we were talking about earlier, and how these themes may have been addressed by these approaches. So first of all, let me ask our distinguished panelists to share their project, how it supports building an open justice system, and what opportunities and challenges they may have faced during the project. So may I start with you, Adna? I believe that you have interesting examples of the collaboration of judiciaries and CSO from OGP members to share with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good morning to everybody. I have a feeling that I'm on a giant screen in the room. So hopefully everybody's having a good morning. I'm torn between whether I want to be there in person or be observing that really great exercise that you did in a very hybrid way. I think it was an excellent way to get the day going. So kudos to you for doing that. And also so many good points that were made that I will also come back to in my presentation. Thank you again to the organizers for inviting the Open Government Partnership to this event. So I am with the partnership on the thematic team, and I wanted to talk to you today about how the partnership and why the partnership is prioritizing open justice and how we're doing that. It is a priority area of work for us. And why? Well, I think the title of the presentation that you're looking at right now says it, because open justice is a foundation for a more open government. Open government does lead to more open justice systems, but also on the reverse, open justice needs to exist for a truly more open government. So it works, I think, both ways. And open government is about open government for all. That is the definition of open government. It is about leaving no one behind. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we are interpreting open justice with our membership. Before I delve further into that, let me spend just 1 minute to tell you about the OGP, the Open Government Partnership, what it is, and how we're structured. So if you could move to the next slide, please, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. So OGP is an organization that was created in 2011 to bring together champions of reform in government and civil society who together believe that governments are much more trustworthy and much more likely to be credible if they open themselves to participation and are more responsive more broadly. And they had the ambition to ensure that governments get better in serving their citizens. So the core values of the partnership are participation, transparency, and accountability. And when OGP was created, it was founded by 8 governments, and you can see that on the screen, and 9 civil society leaders. And that is also now sort of encapsulated in our governance as well. Our steering committee is made up of both equal parts government and civil society. So next slide, please. The core of OGP is this idea of a domestic dialogue. So the idea of collaboration between government and civil society. And together they co-create a set of commitments that are then locked down in action plans. And then we monitor the progress of those action plans throughout the process. But very importantly, the progress is not only on whether they said or whether they did what they said they would do in those commitments and they implemented them, but also very much on the quality and depth of that collaboration. So again, coming back to that question of collaboration. So the commitments are really very much about what domestic priorities exist, how they want to move forward on certain societal issues, and justice is certainly something that we are seeing the whole partnership prioritizing. And all the commitments that are made as part of the partnership are checked by something called the independent reporting mechanism, so a separate entity that monitors and assesses progress. So coming back, next slide, please, sorry. Coming back to open justice, which is one of the priorities, like I said, of the partnership. What do we mean by that, right? How do we implement that? So by open justice, we mean applying that transparency, participation, and accountability, those principles, to also the justice system. That it is transparent, participatory, and accountable to the public. And this, very importantly, refers to not just courts and judicial officials. We're talking about the entire justice system. It's also important for the police, for prosecutors, for legal aid providers, pretrial services, and corrections. So we're talking about an entire system. That is how we define open justice within the partnership. Next slide, please. So coming back to what I started with, how does open justice contribute to open government? Well, for us, we're starting from the premise that the justice system is the way that members of the public protect their rights and can hold their governments to account. So when you invest in open and accessible justice institutions, then you are basically allowing or giving the citizens better opportunity to better defend their rights and to access public services that they're entitled to, and very importantly, protect their ability to participate in democratic processes. So it is not just about their legal needs, right? It is also about protecting their rights to a democratic society as well. So that is how we are defining the links between open justice and open government. So let me, in the next slide, in the next few slides, give you some examples of some of the actions that we recommend and are working with our members to develop more open justice systems. And right now the membership is 75 countries and 103 local level members, which includes states, cities, municipalities, so subnational entities. Next slide, please. So the transparency, right? The first sort of value of open government, what does it mean? And what are we asking members to do? Well, it includes open data, right? That came up in some of the exchanges in the previous exercise. It means having clear and publicly available operating procedures. It means having public access to decisions and opinions, and it means having information about public officials. So these are all sort of the actions that can be taken for a more open justice system. This is a small list, right? But there's obviously more. And I wanted to just highlight, right, from the partnership, we have commitments, right? What I was talking about earlier, from judiciaries in Colombia, Costa Rica, Kenya, and North Macedonia, among others, that all they have put forward basically activities towards these transparency measures, right? So Costa Rica is a great example because they have developed a judicial observatory, right, in their commitment to on case processing, to allow citizens to see where their case is, and that reduces judicial delays because of the pressure that then citizens put on, you know, what is happening with my case. It reduces those delays as well. Next slide, please. So then on civic participation, what we are suggesting and encouraging members to do is to develop and deploy legal needs assessments to engage legal aid providers and other members of civil society that make information about the justice system and justice processes more accessible. So to work with them and to use participatory budgeting processes for justice services. So these are all ways that you can, have participation in the justice system. But I want to make the point that participation is almost useless, right, without the access to information. So transparency has to precede access to information, and transparency enables that participation, right? What's the point of participation if they have no access to information? And on this one, we have, again, examples from the partnership led by judiciaries in Kenya, for instance, where they are working with legal aid providers. The judiciary is working with legal aid providers to have better access to justice for citizens through a very collaborative process, right? So it is a very solid example that I would encourage everybody to look at. Another one is the UK, because they recently launched a call for evidence from the citizens around how their systems are working, how the courts and tribunals are working as part of a reform process. So those are all led by judiciaries. And then on the last one, and this is my last slide, around public accountability. So what we encourage members to do here is to have in place processes for public complaints about justice system actors. So if there's certain abuses, or citizen and or other publicly observable independent oversight boards, as well as fair disciplinary processes that allow for sanctions and removal, of course, which the details of that should be publicly available. So, one of the questions was, what are some of the challenges you're facing? Well, this is a challenge for sure, because we actually do not have judiciary-led commitments around accountability. We have commitments, as noted here, from the Slovak Republic and from Denmark, but that are led by other entities within the government, specifically the Ministry of Justice and others. But as judiciaries, right, we don't see accountability, sort of these accountability actions. And this is very classic to open government, because it is probably the hardest part of open government, to make yourself open to that, to someone to hold you accountable is a big step, but it is so critical. I would, this is something that we keep working on within the partnership, but for a truly open justice system, I would say this is the strongest and possibly the most powerful indicator. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what the partnership is doing on open justice.
Now, for sharing OGP's take on an open justice system and examples of action taking to build it by enhancing transparency, accountability, and civic participation. So now I would like to turn to Judge Gamon Chanok to share an interesting project that the Court of Justice Thailand did earlier this year. It was the first time ever in Thailand that the court opens its door to the general public to take part in designing its process to become more user-friendly. If you don't mind, please tell us how the Justice by Design project came about.
Thank you, Kun Fern, for the opportunity. So in this session, I would like to share how our recent developments is in line with the principle of open justice. In recent years, the President of the Supreme Court has been actively promoting people-centered justice, and this has led to our first project that called for full civic participation. And we also collaborated with the Thailand Institute of Justice and UNDP. And this project is called Justice by Design. It is a project where we invited all stakeholders to co-design the court proceedings by using a design thinking approach. And in this project, we were able to engage a very diverse group of participants. For example, judges, lawyers, probation officers, students, private sectors, technicians, psychologists, and even flight attendants. And through the 8-week workshop, the participant teams, they work together to identify the pain points of the court users, and they ideate solutions, and each team came up with a prototype. And the prototype, those prototypes are not the complicated ones. It's very simple and very practical, and we have already implemented maybe 4 out of 6 prototypes proposed by those participant teams in our court services. And yes, and as a policymaker, it's very eye-opening experience for us, because in the past, when we introduced a new court service, we only like imagine the needs of the court users without directly asking them. But it's really different when we directly ask them. And because we learned that sometimes we overlook the small details, and if we just adjust those small details, we can make a big change. And yeah, so it's very fruitful project, and very practical, and already implemented in the real court service. And if I have time, I can give an example of the prototypes proposed by the participants that will illustrate how we are in line with the better access to justice without leaving anyone behind. One of the prototypes proposed by the participants were that we should simplify the interface of the court online service in order that people with ability to access technology can move from on-site service to online service. And consequently, our limited human resources, meaning our court officers at the court, can serve the citizen, the people with less digital literacy more efficiently. So the more people, the more users we can move from on-site to online, the better the court officer can serve the citizens. This will result in, for example, shorter waiting time for the service, something like that. This is how we think about the takeaway from the projects, that when we introduce a new service, any new service, we have to question if that service is accessible for all. If not, we have to think about the solution for the people who would not be able to access that service, no matter how small that group is.
Thank you. Thank you, Khajash Kamonchanok. It was truly fascinating to hear about such a great project. I actually had the chance to witness it with my own eyes. We hope that projects like these continue, and there will be more opportunities for people to get involved with designing the justice services. Next, I would like to hear from Alvaro from Regia on Zoom. Alvaro will be sharing with us Regia's work on open justice initiatives and the support to the UNDP's regional hub in Panama. Hello, Alvaro. The floor is yours.
Hello. Thank you very much. I want to thank all the organizers of this event for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to share with you some of the promising open justice work that is being conducted in Latin America and the Caribbean. It's also great to see Adna again and Judge Kamonchanok. We shared a panel in the OGP Summit in Estonia a couple of weeks ago. So it's great to be part of this global open justice community. Let me tell you a little bit about my organization, RIJA. It's the International Open Justice Network in English, but we know it as RIJA, which is its Spanish acronym. RIJA is composed of more than 400 members in 20 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. Our members are judges, prosecutors, public defenders, judicial personnel, civil society organizations, activists, and practitioners. Our work focuses in promoting open justice reforms in the region through knowledge sharing, agenda setting, and by developing alliances with justice sector institutions. We have partnered with several Supreme Courts in Latin America, as the Supreme Court of Costa Rica, Ecuador, and Dominican Republic, and also with international organizations such as the Open Government Partnership, UNESCO, and the Organization of American States, among others. In particular, we have a strategic alliance with UNDP's Regional Latin American Hub, which is based in Panama. From our early days, RIJA has partnered with UNDP in producing knowledge on open justice reforms and in advocating with Supreme Courts in the region to design and implement open justice strategies. In terms of our priorities, RIJA conducts extensive work on transparency, open data, accountability, citizen participation, and access to public information in the justice sector. We are oriented to policy reforms and to produce knowledge to support those reforms. For example, we recently published a joint report with EVOS on standards for publishing justice sector data in open formats. We also developed an interactive map of open data portals that facilitates access to open data initiatives implemented by Latin American judiciaries. Soon, hopefully in collaboration with ANNA and the Open Government Partnership, we plan to expand its geographical scope to include other areas of the world, not only Latin America. But I want to talk specifically about a very interesting phenomenon that is taking place in Latin America and that RIJA is actively participating on it, which is the implementation of open justice reform in lower courts. RIJA is focused on mapping out these cases to then share this know-how and lessons learned with other courts. Identifying success stories and sharing them is one of our main lines of work. Although RIJA is focused on fostering alliances with national Supreme Courts and civil society organizations to advance open justice, we're also interested in promoting open justice reform at the lower level of justice systems. In particular, Costa Rica and Argentina, we see in those two countries that open justice reforms are flourishing at the bottom of the judicial pyramid. In other words, lower courts, usually single judge courts, are at the forefront of implementing open justice reform. In some cases, these reforms are driven by the innovation department of judicial branches, like in the case of Costa Rica, but in other cases, open justice reform have been implemented by lower courts autonomously, without the involvement of the Supreme Court or of any other high court, like is the case of some criminal courts in Argentina. 2 years ago, with the UNDP office in Argentina, we carried out an evaluation of these local or lower level reforms that are taking place in Buenos Aires. A very interesting paper has been published on this case, and I want to just mention 8 examples of the most important open justice reform that were identified by this UNDP and RIJA report, because I think this will give you a clear picture of the state of open justice in Latin America. The report found first that lower courts are increasingly use plain language tools and plain language mechanisms to improve communication between the courts and the public. This is very important because it helps to increase public trust in courts and also for enhancing access to justice at the local level. Second, the use of Twitter, Instagram, and other social media to share information about court activities, such as hearings and trials. Social media has become a strategic tool for improving communication, with society. Third, publishing court-related statistical data using Google Drive or other free data sharing tools. Local courts have established public access to their own data. Anyone can access the files stored in the court's Google Drive. And usually you can find a link to these Google Drives in the Twitter or Instagram accounts of these local courts. Fourth, the publication of data in open formats. This is a very important step toward transparency and accountability in the justice sector. Open data increases the use of court-related data by civil society, academia, and even the private sector. So far, just one of the courts in Buenos Aires City has published more than 3,000 decisions in open format. Fifth, the publication of CVs of court personnel on their websites or in these social media accounts. This helps to lower the barriers or generate more trust between the citizens or the court users and the courts. Six, the online access to hearings for the public. Many courts now have taken advantage of new digital technologies to provide the public with access to online hearings. Seven, disaggregating data by gender to improve access to justice for women. This initiative has helped to improve the protection of women's rights and to address cases of gender-based violence. This data had been published in open data formats, which has led to its reuse by academic civil societies and even by UN Women. And finally, the development of anonymization tools to improve both the publication of judicial decisions and access to judicial information. Using machine learning and artificial intelligence, sensitive or personal data is automatically removed from judicial decisions that are going to be published online. So these are some examples of the main type of reforms, of open justice reforms that we are seeing in Latin America at the, in lower level courts. And to end my presentation, I want to mention three challenges that we see. First is the cultural resistance within judiciaries to implement open justice reform. We still have to work on breaking long-standing patterns of lack of collaboration, lack of transparency, of lack of accountability. Second, the lack of know-how. Many courts in the region, many Supreme Courts and many middle and lower level courts are very interested in promoting and implementing open justice reforms, but they usually lack the knowledge. They lack the technical knowledge to implement these reforms. And we're trying to close that gap by generating documents on standards for opening justice sector data, or for example, for implementing citizen participation reforms. And the third and last one is getting judiciaries to approach open justice as a public policy issue, and therefore create a formal open justice program to allocate budget, to train staff, and to have a strategic plan. I think this is very important to advance open justice in the region.
For sharing efforts in building open justice systems starting in Latin America. Starting to implementing something new like an open justice system is all about finding the right entry point. And for one of the cases that Alvaro told us about, it starts with a local court. However, the entry point may be different for a different area and for a different project. And for the next approach we'll hear about starts from the prosecutor's office in Phuket. So, Mr. Pisit, please tell us about how your project in redesigning the space to be more child-friendly came about.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just to start off with, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here and share the experience. Just to start off with, I'm not in the, the legal industry. Actually, the closest thing to law is my wife, who's a lawyer. She works for a law firm. So a lot of what I do kind of influenced by her. And I get the opportunity to work with TIJ on a very small project to start off with. We're actually doing a piloting child-friendly justice system. And the objective was to create a survey about the child forensic interview room. But that's not how we stop, but that's how we start. So I'm actually a designer, and from a designer's perspective, we try to understand people. So we started off with doing like a framework for like the justice system innovation. And it's inspired by what Judge Kamon Chanok talked about, like design thinking, but we call it like human-centered design. And we have three important parts. One is citizen, which is trusting. And this is one of the insights that we found from people is about how they can trust the justice system. Knowledge is providing, so we learn from a lot of different people from all around the world. And the third one is the public sector, which is delivering. But all in all, we look at the experience of all these people, because one of the approach that we use is human-centered design and service design, so that we can really understand the experience of everyone that comes in touch with the justice experience. So what we did was we created a stakeholder map, and we try to understand who's part of this, who's involved in this justice system. And we interview many people. We interview a lot of people from the public sector, mainly public prosecutors, the police, the child psychologists. We also work with another organization called FFI, For Freedom International, which is based in Phuket, and that's how they get access to pushing or drive this child-friendly justice for children. And what we created was something like this, a process map of a justice system involving children. So we look at the whole justice system from the event to entering, to engaging, to exiting, to understand the whole experience of how a child or the guardian go through the justice system. But at the same time, we also look at who's involved at which point and how we can engage with them. And so we also created like maps, a lot of maps like this to try and understand what sort of expertise do they come in and when do they need it and how would they take the whole experience through. So we created a design challenge, and we're looking at how might we collect information during the use of forensic interview room to create information that can justify a more child-friendly justice system. We haven't got to that open justice part yet, but we're working towards it. It's just a small project that we started. And so we visited a lot of organizations when we were in Phuket. We visited the police, we went to the court, and we went to the juvenile court to talk to them about like how they view justice. But importantly, we work with the public prosecutor's office in Phuket, and we ran workshops with them to try and understand how can we create this survey so that we can understand a bit more about how the forensic interview room can be used. So we ran, something happened. Okay, we ran a workshop with the police. So this is a co-creation workshop. We ran it with the police, public prosecutor, child psychologist. We were missing a judge. Actually, if we could, we would actually involve the judge. But importantly, one of our challenges is getting access to the end user or the service users, because it's a challenge for the public prosecutor to actually make an appointment, because sometimes they turn up, sometimes they don't. But we've learned a lot from the process of interviewing and creating this system map or actually experience map for people. And we found that the children actually go through many traumatizing experiences, like interviewings over and over again from all different bodies, from the police to the public prosecutor to the judge. So how can we make that less traumatic, and don't create secondary trauma for them? So. And the other thing that we found was that a lot of service providers understand that they are being child-friendly, but actually they're just being friendly to the child, but not being child-friendly in terms of justice. So it actually spawned a lot of new opportunities for us to kind of redesign the whole justice system. And importantly, we also learned that judges go through the case file without going through the videos. So how can we one of the questions was, how can we use digital technology, creating timestamps on the video so that they can go to the point where they want to understand more? So we try to engage the technology as well. But technology is a tool. And for us as service designers, we look at these as touch points. And what touch points are we creating for the service provider and also the service users to go through the whole justice journey. So at this point, we just created the first questionnaires, and the first questionnaire has just gone through the first prototype and tested, and we just got the results back, and we're still developing the questionnaires further. It's just kind of, it's not working. But anyway, so that's the project that we're working on for now. Oh, that doesn't matter. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have about like 15 minutes or so. I would like to open for a Q&A question. So if anyone have questions for our panelists, whether they're in person or online, you may put your hands up and our facilitators will bring the microphone to you. Yep, we have one question over there and then one question over here and one question over there as well. So maybe we start from the gentleman in the back who put his hands up first.
Peter from the Intellectual and International Trade Court. I'd like to raise a question about, sometimes we talk a lot about the general, but what about the juvenile cases? Like, for instance, the 14-year-old boy who shot 3 people, who killed 2 people just a few days ago. That's another kind of problem there. But, is it the responsibility of the parents? Or the law, or what? So how should we deal with that?
I can kind of talk about this from like a father's perspective, but I also think that it takes a village to raise a child. It's not just about the justice system. Actually, it's about the whole village. And I'm been following that a little bit, and I find that there are lots of things that are vanity is probably more important than what's happening. Like, certain higher up people come down to the site and they're interviewing the child on the spot, which shouldn't happen that way. Like the TV interviewing him at that point, about him, what is he doing? That shouldn't happen either. It doesn't matter if because at the moment he's just maybe a suspect, but actually the justice system also needs to protect him, because I believe that the role of justice system, the purpose of justice system is to protect people from people. So how do we protect all these different people from people? And that's how I look at it. I can't comment more because we don't really know what it is or what's the truth yet. But going back to the whole thing is about, like, it takes a village to raise a child. And then justice system is a touch point in this whole experience. Maybe Judge can actually say more.
I totally agree with you that it is not about the problem within the juvenile law. It goes beyond that, and from the news it raised like millions of questions from the beginning, like how the parents treat their child, and even about the guns. How can that child, when practicing shooting, like without maybe a guardian? And I think this problem might require a very holistic approach, not only the legal questions, and maybe back to the very beginning, how do we encourage family planning from the beginning? Yes, so I think this situation might reflect a lot of issues needs to be addressed.
Thank you. I think this situation totally reflects the diagram that I was talking about in the beginning, that when we talk about justice, we don't only talk about things that happen within the justice system, but we try to look beyond that, starting from the home and community until people enter the justice system, and even after people leave the justice system, how they reintegrate back into the society. So we try to take a more holistic and broader approach to look at things, and this will be one of the examples. So thank you for your question.
Thank you so much.
We have one more question in the back.
Just, yeah. Greetings. Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Judge Jeffrey. I'm from the Tual District Court in Indonesia. I would first like to thank the panelists for their insightful presentations. My question is regarding the open justice system from Ms. Anna. Specifically, I was very interested when she was explaining about the steps being taken or planned in order to increase specifically about the public participation in this open justice system, because I think personally that one is the most difficult one to increase, because we can arbitrarily increase transparency and accountability for us judges, but for public participation, that is the most difficult one, because that must include the, as it says, the participation of of the public. And I would like to ask, what specific or any detailed plans do you think is the most effective way to increase the public participation for an open justice system? And if I may offer my own insight, I don't think it would be very effective or efficient if we don't give what is called a carrot to the public. Why do they need to do this? And if not a carrot, then a stick. If they don't do it, then what's going to happen to them? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
The question was directed to Adna, right? Do we have Adna with us still on Zoom?
It's a very good question. And I know actually Alvaro has thoughts on this because we've been discussing this very question. You are right that participation in justice systems is a very difficult space, it's a very difficult, I think has been less done than sort of transparency initiatives, because it is easier for judiciaries to take the initiative, right, to proactively open themselves up. But the participatory elements also require the participation of citizens and civil society, right? So they also have to be engaged. But I don't think it is, I mean, we have seen from our experience that it is not impossible, right? So very often what the steps have been is providing those opportunities for consultation, you know? So let's say the judiciary is designing a new website about its activities, right? Before that is done, you know, it would be really wonderful to see judiciaries providing the opportunity for citizens to say, this is what I'm having difficulties, this is what I've had difficulties with, right? This is what I would really like to see on the website. This is what I'd like to be able to access the most. So an opportunity for that feedback, that citizen feedback on policies, changes, you know, I think citizens being asked is the way to improve that trust, right? So giving them that opportunity. I don't know, you know, I think the incentive to participate is that invitation. Having a stick necessarily is, you know, I would prefer to see the message being, this is your opportunity to shape it, right? A very positive message as opposed to something negative, because I do think citizens crave that, especially from judiciaries, which I think traditionally, not just in the region, but, and you know, we've seen that in the Americas as well, you know, have been seen as a inaccessible place. So it's a olive branch, I think, to invite that participation. But I don't know, Alvaro, if you want to add, because you've been thinking about this participatory element for a while and trying to map that, if you want to add something to it.
Well, thank you, Anna. Yes, I think, I mean, as you said, it's citizen participation, it's really probably the toughest line of work in terms of open justice, because there is a lack of of knowledge and lack of familiarity with how to, bring the citizen into the activity of the justice sector. I think that probably one thing that we can do is try to think of the different levels and dimensions in which we can include, the view of citizens. For example, the Supreme Court of Dominican Republic has recently prepared its new strategic plan. It's a 4 or 5 year strategic plan. So, well, they decided to have a space for citizen participation, to listen to the people. What do they think about the justice sector in Dominican Republic? What's their view of the efficiency and effectiveness of the justice system? And all that input was used to develop the new strategic plan. So you can bring the participation of the citizens at the strategic planning level. You can bring them at the implementation level. And as you said, if you're going to come up with a new website, first listen to the people. What do they expect about it? What the type of information they would like to see there? And you can also include citizen participation mechanisms at the assessment or the monitoring and evaluation of judicial activity. After at the end of the year, not only have an opportunity for being accountable to the public, but also to have a joint assessment of the results of judicial activity. So I think we can learn and we can close the gap by learning a bit about how citizen participation takes place in the other branches of government. I think that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can learn from examples from other branches of government and try to adapt them into the activity of the judicial branch, and also take into account the peculiarities and specificities of the judicial activity. But I think that there are many opportunities from learning from other sectors of the state, and also trying to think that citizen participation can help you design people-centered justice system. I think that was one of the key questions of this panel. By bringing the view of citizens, you can for sure improve the performance of the justice system, but also making sure that they are aligned with the needs of the people.
Thank you. Thank you both, Alvaro and Adna. I think the heart of civic participation also goes back to what we were talking about earlier, about quantity versus quality, right? We don't want just to increase civic participation just for the sake of having people being involved, but we also want to create meaningful participation where we also maintain the quality of the participation as well. So that's also one thing to think about. So I think we will have our last questions as we are running out of time.
Oh, thank you. I'll make it very quick. So Sean from UNDP, thank you very much for the presentations. I have one very quick question that I think was raised by Alvaro, but anyone could answer. And it's around this plain language, the simple language. So even before participation has to start, even before questions are asked of the public, it seems like such a simple yet very effective way of building a relationship with people by starting to use more plain language. And I think it's not in this region, it's a global phenomenon that judges are famous for being very well read, highly articulate, having very wide vocabularies, but that does sometimes make it a bit difficult to access the court, even just simple language around how the court runs. So just wondering, especially Alvaro, you mentioned it, just some very practical examples of what that looks like on the ground, because I feel like it would be something that judges could easily take home and implement within a couple of weeks if possible. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the panelists want to take that question specifically?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the case, but that's what we found as well when we talked to people, and because we interviewed a lot of a couple of like guardians and also children, and we found that they use a lot of local language, and that's one of the ways that how we can find the local language because that's one of the things when we do user research is using their language. So we don't try to be too knowledgeable or less knowledgeable, but try to understand about like what sort of words do they use, and then we take down notes, and then we'll use that when we deal with other like service providers in the government. Like this is how they approach it, and this is what they think of that. And yeah, thank you for the question. That's a really, really good question, because you don't want the court to be too up here. You know, you want the court to be something that people can rely on and can deliver fairness. And one of the things is like the language is very, very important. Thank you for your question.
Yes, in this
if I
issue,
may,
we also take into account, like we are trying to first of all simplify the court forms in order that people can easily access to justice, because the original form may be like full of complicated words and legal terms, and so our first step is to simplify the court forms to enable people to at least self-litigate. But it will be a very difficult issue when it comes to the judgment, because the judgment has to refer back to the wordings, the terms in the law, in the legislations. But we also have the press release for like important judgment or any judgment that is very interesting for the public. We might simplify the judgment in our press release, not apart from the original judgments.
Just like to support Judge on that. Like we are implementing, we were testing our prototype, the survey prototype, and we look at like other cases, and we try to use those existing cases as a inspiration. But after we tested it, it failed, because people can't get through it, and then they just tick all good. So we really changed it, and we just look at simple things like satisfaction surveys. They're just very, very simple, so that people can actually get access to we can get access to the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was
Alvaro wanted to say something?
Oh, thank you. No, I was going to say that I totally agree. I mean, with the question in terms of strategy, plain language is really a quick win. It's a low-hanging fruit, and it's something that makes a lot of impact. I mean, there are several studies in at least in Latin America where people that attended a hearing at a court are asked, did you understand what happened in court? And many people say, no, I didn't, because the language that is used sometimes in court, it's very I mean, it's not the ordinary language. In Latin America, judges, prosecutors, and public defenders, many times they use a lot of Latin words. That comes from the training in law schools. So if we want to have a people-centered justice system, if we want to improve the public perception of judiciary, I think plain language, it's a strategic decision. It's very important, and it's, as I say, I think it's a low-hanging fruit. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody working in a court understands that speaking in using a simpler plain language it helps to improve access to justice and improves the relationship with the public.
All right, thank you so much. I think we have one more question, but we're running out of time. I'm so sorry. Maybe you can approach our panelists after the session. So I'll have to wrap up this session. Thank you very much for all the questions, and big thanks to all of our honorable panelists who joined us in the session today, both in person and online. So before we part, I would like to leave a few key takeaways with you all today. First, building an open justice system requires an understanding of people's justice needs. Everyone has a chance to be vulnerable and be left behind when their needs aren't met, not only the currently marginalized group. Therefore, to design a justice system that truly leaves no one behind, we must first understand who we are designing the system for and in what circumstances they will be likely to be left behind. Second, there's no definite picture of what open justice system and how that may look like. It will vary depending on the needs of the people. However, being open-minded to existing signals of the futures can help the justice system take a proactive approach in building an open justice system towards the future we want. Instead of reacting to what has already happened, the justice system shall be aware of in which way the futures can head into and how we can all prepare it today by building an open justice system in a way that will be relevant in the future. Third and last, digital technology and increasing access to justice might not be an only answer to everything. The real question is, how do we utilize digital technology in a way that it doesn't only help people get into the door, but also facilitate the delivery of justice and help to meet their justice needs? Variables like quantity versus quality, digitalization versus humanization, and digital divide will be what we should consider when designing the open justice system. Well, that's all from me today. I hope our unconventional session helped start your day off on an interactive note. I look forward to continuing on this journey of building open justice system with you all. Thank you very much.